So, in chapter one of the Smartphone Paradox by Dr. Alan Reed, it starts off as a study just between the correlation of narcissism and expeditionism and technology in the classroom. Um, a big point that was made upon the first couple pages is people that knew the danger of these technologies yet still continued to do it anyways. A good quote he used was liberating but controlling, which can sound a little bit confusing, but everybody that uses a mobile device knows that's exactly how that works. No matter where you go, you're going to feel drawn to use your phone. It makes you feel good, but in the end, it just has outward feelings. Common theme um, talks about how they help you but hinder you, like I just said. They create phones create unrealistic, even just technologies, but mostly smartphones, create unrealistic digital expectations for people. In the first page, he mentioned how it made the girl feel like she needed to respond to people in a certain time. It creates anxiety. It creates this feeling that you need to do something that's not always there and would never be there without a smartphone. Um, he also made the fact that we just check our phones a lot, and it's like a lottery. You pull the lever, you get that buzz, that notification, and you look at it, and it's something good or something bad, and you can never tell in between until you get it. Um, and it's like a trigger behavior pull. That was a quote he used. It Another quote taken from that was it deprives us of important thought processes. It takes away from our ability to do a lot more creative things. It makes some things easier, but it kind of goes with the medium of the message. It takes away. That's the amputation, but its extension is giving us all this information and all this abilities. Um, it goes back to his example. Smartphones influence the way we think and speak. Um, Basically, just that whole first half is just the intro into the chapter. After what I explained, just telling him how the studies were set up, everything like that. This piece stands for all phones, not just the ones that were in the past, not the ones that are just now, even the ones that are going to be made in the future. Um, and it talks about his experiences and his difficulties with smartphones. The way he tries to quit and the way his family talks to him to try to convince him to not. Um, and the difference of how adults, or sorry, not the difference, but the influence adults have on kids. Even making the point that over time, children develop to want phones more than gaming devices, tablets, computers. Um, and there was big point made that was kind of going back and forth all the way up until like the 20th page about the stress it put on students, especially in the early 2000s, of having technology in school. Not just smartphones, but computers and everything, where you'd have teachers say, "Oh, you can do it," but then you can't do it, and that would just put them in very poor positions. And that's spoken a lot, especially I lived through that. I understood you couldn't have stuff in school, but now they promote you to have stuff in school. They want you to have this. If you don't, you're not going to be able to go to college. You can't have a computer. But if you pulled out a computer back in 2009, it was getting confiscated. Um, um, yeah. Also explored the like cognitive functions of writing down notes and just typing them out. The correlations between anxiety and depression and all like overexertion to having phone use, the high phone use. Um, and then this kind of led into the study of the narcissistic traits, where he went in, did a bunch of studies on a bunch of people, ends up finding out that it's a reverse correlation. So people that are on their phones more less narcissistic, and that narcissism is actually good for a competitive classroom and learning experience as they indulge a lot more into their classes. Um, Also spoke about screen time, and a thing I was not too familiar with, which was an app that basically reminds me of credit score, but evaluates your ability to get loans and get everything based off of like messages, contacts, names, and just kind of determines your credibility all through an app. I found that very interesting. Also, how we cope with our phones. Rather than just say this is a problem, we say it's a way of life. It's normal. This is how it should be, and that's just not right. A lot of people are just gonna not listen to it anyways and do what they want to do. Um, we're very over dependent on phones. That was a big theme throughout the entire piece. Um, he calls for a reevaluation, not just from us, but from tech companies and app developers to reevaluate how they're doing this to make it more ethical, make it not addicting, but make it just as useful. As we know, Instagram has their methods to keep it's like a lottery. You keep scrolling, you keep going, and I can see that being very prevalent here. Um, Big point, which goes to Michelangelo in the Medium's message, who Carr was writing about the whole time, made a lot of points about how technology is an extension of us, and one of the paragraphs were named "You are your phone," and that is very important because that not only is it just saying it's an extension, but it's saying it's a part of us. And it's not until later near the end pages where he goes over the ways that there is amputations, but there's many amputations that come with that. Become a lot more distant from each other, even though it's supposed to bring us together. And the amputations obviously is like letter writings out of the way, all that stuff. Also mentioned the phone market and how Apple and Android are like two big rivals, and you're part of a clan. If you're part of the Apple clan, you're part of the Android clan, and like people below you, your lower generations are probably gonna follow the same. Um, Also made the point of what we covered in class: earbuds without music playing. So we were just in class, or you're just walking, but you don't want people to talk to you, so you just put your headphones in, and nobody will talk to you. Um, there was also mentioned the flow state. When we get sucked into our apps, we look at the apps, we just lose track of time, we lose track of what we're doing. It's compared to the flow state of an athlete, which I've experienced multiple times. I played football for 12 years, or 10 years, or whatever years. And I can understand that and say that's true because that's something I've gone through myself. We do get trapped, and they did continue to go on through a study about phones just being in a classroom and the negative impacts that it's going to have on a student, which obviously was found that even just being there instantly negatively drops the performance of whatever you're doing, especially cognitively. Um, yeah, it's, it takes a lot out of you to not look at it, and it disrupts what you're doing normally. They did an emphasized point within this article, which was quoted. Tech is not good or bad, and there's many examples that were used past this. One was the gun example, which was honestly very good. You can't determine if something is good or bad, A, if it's non-existent, but also if you don't understand how it's being used, because anything could be good or bad depending on how it's used. There was a really hard name to say, but he had laws, um, and the they determined basically the supporters of it were like high or low or soft or hard, and then there was a oh, the law explains. I'm so sorry. The law explains devices are interpretations of the truth. Like our phones are just like one way windows straight into us. If you take somebody's phone, you're gonna understand how they are just from that. Look through it and see how somebody is. Um, Another point brought up near the end was technology determinism. New technologies are studied, and this um, kind of goes with the other reading we had this week, the 20-page reading, where technology invokes a social change. So obviously that's the definition of technological determinism. But you see that a lot when they're speaking about the clock and the church bells in the other writing and time, everything with that. There was a strong correlation between this and that reading that we had to do. As it came down to the end, we would sorry, near the end, it kind of goes back and glosses over the is it good or bad method and makes a good point, including the gun again, where once you have an idea of something, if something negative happened with technology, you're gonna remember that. And it's like if a gun was made to shoot and kill, that was the example they used. It's hard to see that device be used in any other way. And I feel like that kind of closes it well with the whole idea is it's nobody's really gonna know it's good or bad. Technology is going to continue to advance, and nobody's going to know the implications it's going to have on humanity. There was a bunch of correlations throughout this writing that went to the other readings we had for the last week and this week. Most of them had to do with social evolution with technology, and a lot of them involved the. Excuse me 1 second. The extension theory, where for an extension to happen, an amputation needs to happen. Um, I explained a couple times throughout the vlog, so I'll let that be it.